tip time. What's going on, everyone? Matt, aka Martiln here. If you've been following me on Instagram, you'll have noticed that I've been putting together a quick tip series for a while now, and I thought what better way to bring the quick tip series to YouTube than as part of a quick tip compilation series. So what I'm going to be doing is putting together 10 quick tips into a short 10-minute compilation video, putting it here on YouTube for you to enjoy. And this is the first one. Before we get into it, just a quick reminder that if you enjoy this content, feel free to head over to my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can just support me, buy me coffee, and get some cool stuff. And be sure to follow me over on Facebook, Twitter, and of course Instagram if you want to get the quick tips as soon as they go live and you don't want to have to wait for the compilation videos here on YouTube. So without any further ado, here are 10 music production quick tips. Quick tip time. So imagine you have a bunch of automation on a particular track, but you decided that you don't really like all of that automation. Well, what you can do is actually delete all of those automation lanes at once. So what we're going to do is just find the track that we don't like the automation on, say this WUB2 track here, and I'm going to open up automation mode by hitting A on my keyboard. Then I'm just going to right click on the track and go to clear all envelopes. And you'll see that all of the automation lanes on this track automatically get cleared. Amazing. Quick tip time. Sometimes you might find yourself wanting to affect different frequency bands individually from each other on the same piece of audio. Now, unfortunately, there's no built-in way to do this in Ableton Live, but we can set something up really quickly. And all I'm going to do is insert a multi-band dynamics onto this track, and I'm going to group this up by selecting it and hitting Command and G. Then I'm going to right-click on the mid-high crossover and map this to macro 1, and then right-click on the low-mid crossover and map this to macro 2. Then I'm going to go over and open up the chain list and duplicate this chain twice by hitting Command and D. Then I'm going to rename the first chain high, the second chain mid, and the third chain low. Then I'm going to go to this high chain, solo the high band, go to the mid chain, solo the mid band, go to the low chain, and solo the low band. And now you have these 3 different chains, which are the 3 different frequency bands, as well as the ability to control the crossovers between each of these bands with these macro knobs here. Quick tip time. Say you're working on a track and you've got these 2 sections together, but you've decided that you want to put something in between them, but you don't want to have to select everything and then manually move it all. Well, you can actually insert a bunch of silence. So in this project, I want to insert some silence in between the verse and the build. All I'm going to do is just select the amount of silence that I want to add, and I'm going to go up to the Create menu and go Insert Silence, or use the key command, which is Command and I. And as you'll see, it just split these 2 sections apart and inserted 8 bars in between them. Then if you want to, say, delete a whole section, you can actually delete all of that time and it will smash those 2 sections either side together by going up to Edit and going to Delete Time, or using the keyboard shortcut, which is Command, Shift, and D. And then you can delete all that silence or a whole section if you want to. There are a few other time-based commands such as cutting time and pasting time, and these allow you to essentially cut whole sections and paste whole sections as well, which are really useful. Quick tip time. What if you want to affect the left and right channels of a particular track individually from one another? Well, there's a really easy way to set this up inside of Ableton Live. What we're going to do is insert a utility onto our audio track, then we're going to set its channel mode to left, group it, open up our chain list, turn it down by 3 decibels, then pan it all the way to the left. Then we're going to duplicate this chain, pan it all the way to the right, and change the channel mode of this duplicated utility to right. Then we're going to rename our first chain to left, and our second chain to right. And now we have control over the left and right channels of our piece of audio individually. Quick tip time. If you're an Ableton Live user, you've probably noticed that the program shows this kind of pseudo grid in arrangement view, where it goes from light grade to dark grade, and it's typically broken up into 4-bar, 8-bar, 16-bar kind of divisions, depending on how far you're zoomed in or out. Now, this is really great for allowing you to really quickly visually see the structure of your tune and how it conforms to this 4-bar structure. But what if you want to add like 1 or 2 bars extra? It can get really annoying and it can kind of throw things off, but there's a way of resetting the pseudo grid really easily. So I've got a project open up here where I want to do this thing, and as you can see, we've got this dark gray, light gray, dark gray thing going on here, but in the middle here I have this break of 2 bars before it goes to this build up. Now if I zoom out all the way, you'll see that it kind of breaks this pseudo grid in half. Now I can really quickly just reset this pseudo grid at the point that I want to by right clicking up at the top of the timeline here and inserting a time signature change. We're not going to change this time signature, but you'll notice as soon as I insert a time signature change, the pseudo grid resets itself. Quick tip time. Sometimes you might want to split the mid and side channels of your audio so you can affect them in different ways other than just EQing, like using an EQ in mid-side mode. Unfortunately, there's no kind of built-in way to do this, but there's a really easy way to set it up. So what we're going to do is insert a utility onto our audio track. We're going to right-click on the width control and turn it to mid-side mode. Then we're going to group our utility, open up the chain list, and duplicate the chain. We're going to name this first chain to mid, and this second chain to side. And then we're going to go to our mid chain, set our mid side control all the way to 100% mid, and then go to our side chain and set our side control all the way to 100% side. And that's it. Now you can affect the side channel and the mid channel separately from one another. Quick tip time. One of my favorite features of Ableton Live 10, but that isn't talked about a huge amount, is the automation shapes. Essentially, what these allow you to do is apply preset shapes to your automation curves. So here I've got this kind of basic instrument pad line, and what I want to do is just automate this filter cutoff on this auto filter. I'm just going to select this auto filter cutoff frequency, open up my automation mode by hitting A on my keyboard, and then I'm going to select the range that I want to apply a shape to, which is this entire clip, right click, and then come down to the bottom of the right click menu where it says insert shape. And as you can see, we have a whole bunch of shapes to choose from, and clicking on any of those will apply that shape to that entire region that we have selected for our automation. This is really useful and a really quick way to easily apply common automation shapes. Quick tip time. Let's say that you have a MIDI pattern in one instrument, but you want to be able to have another instrument that plays from this same MIDI pattern. But you also want to make sure that if you change that original MIDI pattern, what's playing in the new instrument also changes as well. Luckily, in Ableton Live, there's a really easy way to set this up. So here I've got this basic analog patch playing a really basic chord progression. And I've also got this operator patch that I want to be playing the same chord progression. So of course, I can copy down the MIDI clip to this operator track, but then if I make a change to the original MIDI clip, it's not going to change that copied MIDI clip. So instead, what I'm going to do is go over to the right-hand side near my track headers, make sure that the input-output section is open by hitting this little button down here, and then set the input of my operator channel to be the analog channel. Then make sure that my monitoring setting is set to in. Now, whatever MIDI is playing in this analog track will also be routed to this operator track, and any changes I make on that analog track will also be heard in the operator track. Pretty cool. Quick tip time. Let's say that you had a MIDI performance that you wanted to be able to alter the velocity of without having to go into the MIDI clip and alter the velocities of the individual notes manually. Well, luckily in Ableton Live, we can set this up really easy using the velocity MIDI effect. So here I've got this MIDI clip that has a bunch of altering velocities that sounds like this. And I want to be able to even these out. So what I'm going to do is insert a velocity MIDI effect onto this MIDI track. I'm going to select and group this velocity MIDI effect by hitting Command and G. Then I'm going to right click on the out high control, map that to macro 1, and then right click on the out low control and also map that to macro 1. Then I'm going to rename macro 1 to velocity. And now we have this parameter that allows us to control the velocity at any given point in time on this MIDI clip. As an added bonus, you can also map this random control to macro 2 to add in some randomization to your velocity values. Quick tip time. Wavetable is one of my favorite synths inside of Ableton Live 10. But one feature that I don't see get talked about a whole lot are the Unison modes inside of it. And in particular, one Unison mode which is my absolute favorite, and that's the noise Unison mode. Here I have this patch inside of Wavetable. It's just a basic saw wave, sounds like this. All I'm going to do is come down to the Unison mode, turn it on to the noise Unison mode, and then suddenly we get this amazing sound that sounds like this. Absolutely one of my favorite features inside of Wavetable, and you should start using it.